Unit 1, Public Administration, Meaning, Nature, Scope, and Importance. Administration as an activity is as old as society itself, but as an area of study, it originated with the publication of Wilson's essay on study of administration in 1887. As a process, administration occurs in both public and private organizations. It occurs in such diverse institution as setting as a business firm, labor unions, religious or charitable organizations, educational institutions, etc. Its nature is affected by the sphere with which it is concerned. Administration is commonly divided into two types: public and private administration. As an aspect of government activity, it has existed since the emergence of a political systems. While public administration relates to the activities carried out by government, private administration refers to the management of private business enterprises. It is important to understand the functioning of administration, for on this lies the understanding of the government. In this unit, an effort has been made to bring the concept of administration, public administration in particular, closer to you. This understanding will take you through the entire course of public administration. Public administration. In this preceding text, the importance of public administration as a discipline and as an activity has been discussed. Subsequent developments in the discipline in response to both practical problems and academic questions have further enhanced its importance as a vibrant and meaningful field in the contemporary world. The burden of public duties on government has been steadily increasing. It seems that public administration is indispensable because contemporary civilization cannot progress without a sound administrative system. According to Gerald E. Caden, the positivistic interventionist role of a government would automatically find reactions in academic inquiry. And as history has shown, the importance of public administration as a discipline has been closely associated with the increasing activist role of government everywhere. In the context of newer and the wider duties and responsibilities thrown on the state, the role of public administration is more vital and important than of almost any other branch of government. As a growing field of knowledge and practice, public administration has attempted to meet this challenge. Unit 2, Nature and Typologies of Organization. In this first unit, an attempt is made to understand about public administration, its meaning, nature, scope, and importance, and distinction between public and private administration. In this unit, we will discussing about the importance of organization vis-a-vis administration. We all know that administration is a cooperative group effort for the purpose of achieving predetermined objectives or goals. Public administration is an organized activity aiming at provision of services besides application of constraints to individuals and groups in the society. It is obvious that the efforts of different persons have to be in accordance with a preconceived plan to avoid confusion and working at cross purpose. Katz and Kahn observe that when goal directed activities are coordinated rationally by assignment of duties and responsibilities, this rational coordination is organization. Consequently, public administration requires organization, but organization can take many different forms and can maximize many diverse values. The structure of organization affects the behavior of the organization as a whole and of the individual members of it. The same is true for the process through which organizations operate. By designing organizational structures and process of one kind or another, different purpose can be achieved. Organizations come into existence for the attainment of some process, purpose, or goal. For example, the United Nations organization was established after the end of the Second World War with the noble objective of saving the world from the scourge of another war. And we know that much of the cooperative human effort takes place within formal organization, of which government agencies are only one example. Others are private companies, labor unions, religious institutions, hospitals, universities, professional societies, and political parties. It is therefore important to know about the organization as rightly observed by David H. Rosenblum. that organization of administrative activity ranks at the forefront or deals questions with which the student and practitioners of public administration must be concerned. So in this minute, we will discuss the importance of organization, with administration types, typologies, and approaches to organization. An organization is the planned coordination of the activities of a number of persons or employees for the accomplishment of some common explicit purpose or goal through division of labor and functions and through hierarchy of authority and responsibility. If two or three persons have to work to achieve a common goal, there arises the need for an organization. Without having a cooperative and systematic relationship between them, the results are likely to be disappointing. James T. Mooney rightly observes that an organization is necessary whenever two or more people must combine their efforts towards the same end. Even if the task is a short lived one, such as moving a large stone, we are living in a world of organizations. For every aspect, we find one or other organizations to provide services. In this unit, we will try to make you familiarize with the how important of an organization for administration and explain the meaning, importance, and the principles of of organization, the nature and characteristics of formal and informal organizations, and the distinctions between them are discussed. The basis on which the organizations are established are also presented. The third unit is development and growth of administrative theories. Public administration is an integral part of a society. Its importance is pivotal in both developed and developing countries. Public administration, as a specialized academic field, deals essentially with the machinery and procedure of government, as these are used in effective performance of government activities. According to Nicholas Henry, public administration purpose is to promote a superior understanding of government and its relationship with the society it governs, as well as to encourage public policies more responsive to social needs and to institute managerial practices and attended to effectiveness, efficiency, and the deeper uh, human requisites of the citizenry. Public administration is a part of wider field of administration, lends itself to usage. It is an activity and it also refers to the discipline of intellectual inquiry study. In simple, public administration is a combination of theory and practice. In this unit, an attempt is made to review the development and growth of administrative theories. The theory is a body of related principles of dealing systematically with a subject. It is a concise presentation of facts and a logical setup of assumptions from which empirical laws or principles can be derived. Therefore, theory building becomes very important for the growth and development of any discipline. Public administration is no exception. Administrative theory will help the administrator to conceive proper reasoning and sound arguments. It educates the administrators scientifically, as theory is the conceptualization of experience. Public administration as the discipline was born in the United States, and that country continues to enrich it even today. Theory building in public administration is a very complex exercise due to its diversified nature. A brief survey of a development and growth of administrative theories brings forth the contributions of various schools of thought are analyzed in this unit. The survey identified that too little relevant public administration theory exists. In other words, public administration is yet to develop a systematic body of knowledge. Fourth unit is scientific management approach. In the previous unit, we have discussed the meaning, importance, and significance of public administration. We also discussed the typology of organization and evolution of administrative theories. In this unit, we will be discussing the contribution of F.W. Taylor to the scientific management approach. Scientific management approach is one of the important approaches in the field of administrative theory. This theory came in the wake of new industrial revolution that has taken place during the later part of 19th century. Scientific management approach is an attempt to solve the problems of complex organizations that have emerged as a result of industrial development. Frederick Winslow Taylor is generally regarded as the pioneer of the scientific management approach, which paved way for the modern management approaches and techniques. F.W. Taylor was born in Germantown in Pennsylvania on March 20, 1856. He received education in France and Germany. He also received mechanical engineering degree from Stevens Institute of Technology of Hoboken, New Jersey. At the age of 18, he joined the Enterprise Hydraulic Works, Philadelphia, and served as apprentice for 4 years. In 1878, he went to work at Midwell Steel Company as a laborer, and he became the chief engineer of that company. In 1884, he became general manager of manufacturing investment company in 1890. In 1893, he opened an office in New York as a consulting engineer. As an engineer, he is instrumental in the development of new technologies. He invented several tools to increase the production. Some of the important tools he developed were cutting tool, a heat treating tool, a steel hammer, hydraulic power, load machinery, boring, and turning mills. He was always interested in improving upon the techniques of management. He emphasized on the scientific way of developing the tools as well as scientific way of performing the job. He has passion for efficiency and scientific way of work in the organization. The above discussion on scientific management shows that the Taylor's scientific management was responding to the problems of the early industrial organizations. Taylorism provided a certain practical solutions to the problems of industries, and they got benefited from scientific management. Taylor firmly believed that there is a best method for doing any work. One has to find out the best method by systematic study of work. Taylor emphasized that the management has to take up equal responsibility for the work done in the organization. He also emphasized that there is a need to select the right type of persons to perform the job and also train them in improving the performance. Apart from systematic study of the work, the standardization of tools and procedures are necessary. There is also need for completing understanding and cooperation between the work and the management. They should, instead of focusing in increase in the wages and profits, they should give importance in increase the production. Taylor's idea have helped the industrial societies to overcome the basic problems of low production and low labor problems. Because of the scientific nature of Taylor's ideas, they have spread not only to the European countries but also to the scholastic societies like Russia. Next is administrative management approach. In the previous unit, we have discussed about the Taylor's contribution toward the scientific management approach. In this unit, we will discuss the important contributors towards administrative management. While Taylor focused on shop floor management, the later writers like Gulick and Urvik have focused on the organization as a whole. Taylor was concerned with worker and emphasized more on floor level activities to enable the management to make its workforce more productive. Taylor has not emphasized on supervisory levels and efforts. The later writers like Gulick and Urvik, who took managerial view of the administration rather than floor level administration, took this up. The rationalization on the floor done by the scientific management needed to be supplemented by rationalization through the whole enterprise to run it profitably. Those who have taken up the managerial view did this. This approach is also known as administrative management approach. In spite of various criticisms, the administrative management approach and the principles of administration have contributed significantly to the theory and practice of administration. That this theory emerged historically at a point of time when the organizations were becoming complex and faced with problem of inefficiency and low production. This theory has enabled the large scale organizations to operate effectively. It is also relevant to understand the administrative process of the contemporary organizations. In spite of their limitations, the principles continue to be practiced in the organization, they facilitated the smooth functioning of administration. To get benefited from the principles, one has to understand this theory in a proper perspective and apply it to the contemporary situation with required modification. Unit 6 is Max Weber theory of bureaucracy. In the classical approach to administration, Weberian model of bureaucracy finds a central place. Max Weber is the first thinker who has systematically studied the bureaucracy. He has provided a theoretical framework and basis for understanding bureaucracy. Max Weber's analysis influenced many modern writers on bureaucracy. Weber, apart from bureaucracy, wrote on various aspects of society ranging from history, religion to legitimacy and domination. Weber was founder of modern sociology and the greatest scholar among the pioneers of administrative thought. He was one of the towering thinkers of 20th century. The Weberian, the Weberian ideal type of bureaucracy continues to be dominant paradigm in the public administration. Weber can be considered as one of the eminent thinkers of 20th century. Though he has written extensively on various subjects, his contribution to the theory of bureaucracy is highly valued. Today, we can see it is in practice in all the societies of the world. Weber being proved correct when he said that the societies once governed by the bureaucracy can never get rid of it. His ideas on authority, rationality of bureaucracy continues to be relevant for the present day society. Most of the time, those who criticize the Weberian model are not actually criticizing Weber, but the present day bureaucracy, which reflect the changes that are taking place in the contemporary period. Bureaucracy might need certain reforms to make it more relevant to the society. Next is critique of bureaucracy. Bureaucracy as a phenomenon or concept is not the product of 20th century and existed in a rudimentary form in earlier period in different countries of the world. In some of the countries, its origin and history was traced to BC, China, and India. It was believed that way back in 186 BC in China, the public offices were recruited through competitive examination and the bureaucratic system was in place. It was Vincent de Gournay who first used the term bureaumania to describe the form of government that existed in the first half of the 18th century in France. He used to be a strong critic of it and often felt that officers, clerks, secretariats, and inspectors, though exist for the public good or interest, but in practice they used to create that public interest for their own existence. Since then, many political scientists and sociologists have critically examined the bureaucracy, its mechanism, irrespective of any political system in which the bureaucracy functions. Many times, the term bureaucracy is synonymously used for the government. Also, criticism on bureaucracy is as old as the government system itself. There is no doubt that bureaucracy is one of the oldest surviving institutions in the world. It attracted the attention of the scholars of different periods from Mill, Mosca, Michels, Marx to Weber. Mills, Mosca, and Michels have highlighted the dysfunctionalities of the bureaucracy, whereas Marx considered the bureaucracy as an arm of the state and viewed it as an exploitative instrument. Weber considered bureaucracy not only as positive institution but also as a most effective form of organizations to achieve the calculable result of the modern society. However, Weber was also criticized on the grounds of lack of internal consistency and dysfunctionality of hierarchy and rules in attainment of objectives of organization. The ideal bureaucracy advocated by Weber is not suitable to the developing societies. In spite of attracting criticism from several quarters, the bureaucracy is gaining its importance in its operations in the modern society. The criticism leveled against the bureaucracy has not resulted in evolving an alternative system to the bureaucracy. Thus, it became an inevitable institution for all the political systems for their functioning. Next is eighth, human relations approach. Uh, In the previous unit, we have discussed about the classical approach in which we try to understand the various streams of the classical approach, such as scientific management, administrative management, and Max Weber's theory of bureaucracy. The classical approach focused mostly on the structural aspects of the organization. It has not paid much attention on the human aspects of the organization. Subsequently, a few scholars devoted their attention to the human aspects of the organization, thereby contributing to the emergence of the human relations approach. The classical organization theory has focused attention on the psychological and mechanical aspects of organizational functioning. These variables were tested in the field to increase the efficiency of the organization, but to the surprise of the researchers, the positive aspects of these variables could not even evoke a positive response in work behavior in contributing to the increase in productivity. In this context, the researchers tried to find out the reason for human behavior at work. First, the investigation, they came to conclusion that the real cause of human behavior was somewhat more than mere psychological and mechanical variables. Then they focused attention on the human beings in the organization. This approach is referred to as the human view of the organization or human relations approach administrative theory. In this unit, we will try to discuss the meaning and emergence of human relations approach and various research studies conducted at the Hawthorne plant of Western Electric Company and under the leadership of Elton Mayo. In spite of its shortcomings, Mayo human relations approach marked a major turning point in the history of administrative theory and practice. According to Bertram M. Gross, Mayo made an attempt to understand the problem of the worker from an angle different from that of the traditional approach of the scientific management era. Indeed, it is regarded as a major development in the American administrative thought of the period 1900 1939. It has great deal of impact initially on business administration, but also in the administrative system of state. Particularly in the case of bureaucracy, Mayo's findings have profoundly changed the nature of organizations theory. His most important finding is to identify the roots of work satisfaction as non-economic and to connect it with the interest taken in the worker's performance. These findings reverse Taylor's emphasis on the incentive of monetary rewards and disprove the rigid tailorist philosophy of self-interest of the worker. The Hawthorne studies developed a more realistic model of human nature. As a consequence, human beings are recognized as social entities and as influential input into organizational performance. Human beings are regarded as key contributors to organizational efficiency, productivity, and its goal attainments, and hence they have a respectful place in the organization. An important discovery of Mayo and his team is the concept of proper management. Workers' communication, especially between the lower rungs of the organization and the higher levels communication with the leaders of the informal groups, is also considered equally important. Both terrorism and human relations schools were a response to the changing needs and problems of an industrial society, albeit with the different theoretical frameworks. Taylorism emerged during the heyday of the individual ethic, according to which the individual acting intelligently in pursuit of his own self-interest would eventually contribute the most to the good of the group. This ethic has never been completely rejected, but with the human relationists, it coexists with a social ethic that affirms the value of human collaboration and social solidarity. As William G. Scott notes, the conditions existing in pre 20th century America caused an ethic of individualism to make sense of management. Equally, the changing conditions in 20th century America created a climate in which the social ethic has progressively enlarged its role in management philosophy. Peter Drucker observed in 1973 that management practice did not reflect the key approaches of human relations school led by Elton Mayo, but to the extent to which it has been accepted and acted upon, the human relations approach become an explicit central facet of organizational theory and behavior. Ninth unit is views of Harvard A. Simon on decision making in an organization. Behavior studies are studies of human behavior through interdisciplinary approach, drawing knowledge from various social science disciplines. The objective of the behavioral approach is to understand human behavior in the organization. After the Second World War, the behavioral approach to public administration emerged as a protest against the inadequacy and scientific nature of traditional approaches. In the field of administrative behavior, the major studies have been on bureaucracy, human relations, motivation, and decision making. Herbert A. Simon's contribution has been particularly significant in the field of decision making. Simon started his career in municipal government. His greatest contribution to public administration is insight into how individuals make decisions in bureaucratic organizations. According to some scholars, Max Weber discussed the anatomy of organizations, where he was Herbert A. Simon discussed its psychology. Some of his important contributions are administrative behavior 1947, fundamental research in administration 1953, organization 1958, and human problem solving 1972. And recognition of his outstanding contribution in the analyzing the decision making process, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1978. He was influenced by Mary Parker Follett's ideas on group dynamics in organization. Elton Mayo's human relations approach. The greatest influence on Simon is Bernard's work on functions of the executive. In this unit, we will discuss about Simon's view on classical theory, decision making, and execution of decision, bounded rationality, models of decision making, behavior, organizational influence, and the use of computers in decision making. These views of Herbert Simon have been adapted from his original book, Administrative Behavior, a study of decision making process in administrative organization. So, despite all the imperfections mentioned above, Simon's contribution is undoubtedly a major breakthrough in the evolution of administrative theory. The decision making theory of Simon provides a new paradigm in administrative theory. Simon's criticism of principles approach of the classical writers and his stress on behavioral approach based on logical positivism have emphasized the need to reformulate administrative theories along much sounder lines than before. He emphasizes the importance of the concept of decision making for theories of administration to develop. His pertaining study of the dynamics of decision making process provides a deep insight into administrative behavior. His administrative behavior has completely reoriented the study of administration in the decades that followed its publication in 1947. Following Simon's work, several major theories such as Michael Crozier, Anthony Downs, Gordon Tulloch, Victor Thompson, Dwight Waldo, and R.T. Golembowski made a contribution to administrative behavior. In some ways, Herbert Simon laid the foundation for the development of a new administrative theory. In recognition of his substantial contribution to the social sciences, he was awarded the Nobel Prize meant for economics. Simon's work also provides a bridge between public administration and business management. Next is organizational structure, process, and functioning. Organizations are pervasive in modern organizational society. In fact, the existence of organization is as old as civilization. They meet any kind of human need: social, emotional, spiritual, intellectual, and economic. Argyris stated that organizations are usually formed to meet objectives that can best be met collectively. Organizations are social inventions for accomplishing goals through group effort. They combine structure and relationship, technology, and human beings. In this unit, an attempt has been made to discuss organizational structure, process, and functioning. An organization is simply a social unit with some particular purposes. The most common formal definition of an organization is a collection of people engaged in a specialized and interdependent activity to accomplish a goal or mission. The basic components of organization have not changed very much over centuries. All organizations have explicit or implicit purposes: attract participation, acquire, allocate resources to accomplish their purposes, often among competing interests and activities, establish some form of structure to assign and coordinate tasks, and permit some members to lead or manage others. Rules are needed to make certain people know who is responsible of what, to coordinate activities, and to limit the scope of people's activities and decisions. Organizations are different creatures to different people. Organizations are defined according to their context and perspectives peculiar to the person doing the defining. Organizations are such enormously complex social, economic, political systems that multiple perspectives are needed to understand the numerous relationships and various variables in and around them. Different types of theories are needed for different purposes. Government organizations have changed dramatically since World War II, and organizations theories have also myriad school or paradigms of organization theory have emerged to help us understand government organizations, why they and the people in and around them act as in the ways they do. The human relations school of organizations theory in the late 1950s and early 1960s that departed radically from the tenets of classical organization theory. Since the decade of the 1960s, some of the new paradigms of organization theory have included system terms, theories, and critical theories, modern structural theories, cultural theories, feminist theories, and rational choice theories, postmodern theories, and on and on. The major group of theories challenge the hierarchical authority model. The organizational theories rooted in the dynamics of human relations condemn the impersonality of bureaucratic hierarchies and so plead for the humanizing of the organization. It is no wonder that a large number of theories have appeared. Given the multitude of perspectives from which to examine organizations, any one theory about public organization may appear to be wrong. Next is socio-psychological approach. Views of Chris Argyris. Argyris is best known as a great psychologist and an organizational theorist. He is the leading management thinker who studied organization from the standpoint of psychology. He focuses upon the individual's relationship to the organization. He has studied extensively the conflict between the individual's social and psychological needs and the exigencies of the organization. In developing his conceptualization on organizational behavior, Argyris has extensively applied research findings in the fields of psychology, social psychology, and human relations. Argyris' influence on the discipline of management and public administration is widespread. Argyris has an excellent academic record with the background of economics and psychology. After taking his first degree in psychology, he served as a professor of industrial administration at Yale University for many years. In 1971, he was appointed James Bryant Conant Professor of Education and Organization Behavior at Harvard University. Argyris' major work are Personality and Organization 1957, Understanding Organizational Behavior 1960, Interpersonal Competence and Organizational Effectiveness 1964, Integrating the Individual and the Organization 1965, Organization and Innovation 1965, Intervention Theory and Method 1970, Management and Organizational Development 1971, the applicability of uh, organizational sociology 1972, Increasing Leadership Effectiveness 1976, Reasoning, Learning, Action 1982, Overcoming Organizational Defense 1919. Besides, he has published a number of articles in journals of international repute. Argyris has attempted to develop a theory of human behavior based on the characteristics of the individual, the work group, and the normal on the formal organizations. Viewing an organization as an open system, he has analyzed the interaction between the organization and the environment as also between the individual and the organization. His first mission was to discover the unintended counterproductive consequences of the classical management techniques employed to design and implement the formal pyramid like organizational structure, production technology, control system, and human control system, such as pay and other benefits. The later research of Argyris focus on reasoning at both the individual and the organizational level. His writing suggests that the personal development of the individual is affected by the organizational situation. Argyris' research attempt to show as to how the personal development of the individual is affected by the kind of situation in which he works. As a consultant and a pioneer in the application of the T group technique, his influence on reforms of organizational structures and managerial practices is striking. A brief discussion to Argyris' views on various dimensions of organizational analysis is attempted below. Argus suggests an intervention strategy for organization development in four core areas. Firstly, the organization should provide an environment for the development of individual towards personal or psychological maturity. Secondly, a program for organization change should aim at improving the interpersonal competence of the employees. Thirdly, changes must be introduced to transform the traditional pyramidal form of an organization. Fourthly, Technology techniques for programmed learning aimed at individual change should be introduced. According to Argris, the present organizational strategies developed and used by the administrators lead to authoritarianism, dehumanization, and organization decay. His objective has been to increase organizational health and improve interpersonal competence. He advocates a basic change in organizations to provide an appropriate environment for self-realization. Gordon Lippett observes that the greatest contribution of Argris lies in his idea that formal organizations are basically anti-maturing and therefore act against employees achieving a sense of self-actualization. Socio-psychological approach, views of Abraham Maslow and Frederick Herzberg. Employees' motivation has occupied an important area of inquiry among many administrative thinkers. Scientific management believed that workers could be motivated by manipulation of rewards and sanctions, and to this end, it devised the payment system based on piecework. As payment depended upon how much one produced, it was assumed that a worker would be induced to produce more. Specialization was encouraged with the view that if a worker concentrated on a small piece of work, he would produce more, thus increasing his income. The Hawthorne experiments conducted by Alton Mayo criticized this theory of motivation, but it did not develop a comprehensive theory of motivation. It was Abraham Maslow who in 1943 made a breakthrough in human motivation with the appearance of his paper entitled For a Theory of Human Motivation. Published in the journal Psychological Review, in this article, Maslow postulated the idea of hierarchy of human needs. Human beings are pleasure seeking beings and are motivated towards satisfaction of their needs. Before Maslow, all administrative thinkers belonging to the human relations school routinely took that instrumental view of man, believing and manipulating him to be more productive tool of the organization. Maslow makes a departure from such thinking. He contends that the employee is not to be treated as an instrument, as an autonomous hierarchy of needs motivates him. Man, in the other words, is a self-actualizing being. Maslow holds the view that the best managers are one who improve the health of the employees. In this unit, an attempt is made to explain the views of Abraham Maslow and Frederick Herzberg on human motivation and also assess the impact of this motivational theories on organizational process. Employee motivation has occupied our important area of inquiry among many administrative thinkers. Abraham Maslow and Frederick Herzberg have developed comprehensive theories of motivation. Both were psychologists who questioned the conventional wisdom of managerial dogma and practices and have studied the problem of human motivation in a systematic way. According to Abraham Maslow, man is driven only by unsatisfied needs. He identifies human needs in the form of hierarchy. At the lowest end are the psychological and security needs. The self-actualization need is at the highest one. In between, there are social and self-esteem needs. Once the needs at the lower order are satisfied, they cease to be motivators. Only the higher order needs can motivate the workers. Then Maslow's contribution in the form of his need hierarchy is significant in organization theory. Herzberg develops the motivation hygiene theory of motivation through an empirical study. His research purports to find two-factor explanation of motivation determinants for job satisfaction and job dissatisfaction. According to him, hygiene factors are essential for obtaining minimum performance by gratifying the low-level needs, but motivators are necessary for securing outstanding levels of performance in an organization. The theories of Maslow and Herzberg focus their attention on the same relationship, but that is what motivates an individual. But there is a particular difference between their theories. Maslow emphasizes that any unsatisfied need, whether of lower order or higher order, will motivate individuals. According to Herzberg's, lower order needs are hygiene factors and fail to motivate workers. Both these theories certainly help the managers to understand the attitudes of employees towards work and to make appropriate steps to motivate them. Next is views of Douglas McGregor and Victor Vroom. People work for a wide variety of reasons. Some people want money, some want challenge, and some want power. What each unique person is in an organization wants from work as an instrumental role in determining that person's motivation to work. Motivation is vital to our organizations. Often the difference between highly effective organization and less effective ones lies in the motivation of their members. Thus, managers needs to understand the nature of individual motivation, especially at it applies to work situations. Motivation is the set of forces that lead people to behave in a particular ways. Managers strive to motivate people in the organization to perform at high levels. Motivation is the most difficult factor to manage. If motivation is deficient, the managers faces the more complex situation of determining what will motivate the employees to work harder. In view of the importance of motivation in managerial process, in this unit we will determine the motivational models of Douglas McGregor and Victor Vroom in the organizational context. Motivation is vital to all organizations. Thus, managers need to understand the nature of individual motivation, especially as it applies to work situations. Motivation is the most difficult factor to manage. Theories of motivation can be classified into two categories: content theories of motivation and process theories of motivation. Need theories developed by Abraham Maslow and Alfred come under content theories of motivation. These theories are based on the types of needs that people have and the way these needs could be satisfied so that people would be motivated. Motivation models developed by McGregor and Vroom come under the category of process theories of motivation. These theories are more concerned with the cognitive antecedents that go into motivation on our efforts and with the way they affect each other. McGregor studied the assumptions that about human behavior which underline the managerial action, the management section of motivating human being in the organization. According to McGregor's involves certain assumptions, generalizations, and hypotheses relating to human behavior and human nature. He characterizes these assumptions in the two opposite points, theory X and theory Y. Theory X view is that people are passive or resistant to organizational need and need to be persuaded, reward, punished, or controlled to achieve organizational need. On the other hand, theory Y takes the opposite view. The assumptions of theory Y emphasize the cooperative endeavor of management and employees. The central principle in the assumptions of theory Y is that integration of behaviors is the key process in management. Victor Vroom presents expectancy theory that is based on motivation process. The theory attempts to determine how individuals choose among alternative behavior. He develops his motivation model around the concept of value, expectancy, and force. One of the important features of this theory is that it recognizes individual differences in work motivation and suggests that motivation is a complex process and compared to Maslow's and Herzberg's simplistic models. Motivation models developed by McGregor and Victor Vroom are useful to managers in understanding the nature of motivation in work situations. These models are also help in understand the complexities of determining that what motivates the employees to better perform. Open and cooperative system. This unit outlines the system approach in the study of organization. It deals with the closed and open systems approaches. The study of organization has fascinated researchers over centuries. Various approaches have been adopted to analyze organizations. The earlier studies of systems approach adopted the evolutionary perspective in analyzing the development of social systems. There are the stages societies or social systems undergo through social differentiation process was also central to modernization, in that the unit or subsystem divides into separate systems or units which differ in both structured and functional significance. The literature on organization is drawn from a variety of sources and is multidisciplinary in nature, with contributions from sociology, political science, public administration, economics, and psychology, to name a few. Undifferentiated social systems can best be illustrated by the kinship centered household, which combines both the units of residence and agricultural production. Our knowledge about the systems approach would be incomplete without an understanding about the basic assumptions, theoretical underlying the two main approaches central to the system analysis. The closed system and the open system models on one led to the other, in that the critique of the closed system approach opened the way for the conceptualization of the open systems model. Taken together, they constitute the whole. The two major schools of thought could be broadly analyzed under the closed system approach and the open system approach. In this unit, we will be discussing the models under closed and open system, cooperative system, and synthesis of closed and open system. The foregoing analysis describes the various approaches adopted in the study of organizations. Two broad streams of thought are identified: the closed system and the open systems approach in organization theory. The three main models under the closed system are the scientific management, the administrative management movement, and the Weberian bureaucracy. These three models are also known as rational models. All the three models believed in the conceptual closure of an organization. They believed that organizations could be sealed off from the outside influences. The closed system approach is based on the formal theory of organization models. Following the closed system approach assume that by adopting rationality, the organization could be managed on scientific lines. According to them, there is one best way to organize men and matters irrespective of cultural differences of variations in political systems. Differentiation is at the core of the systems approach. The argument is that the more differentiated the structure or an organization, the more complex it is likely to be. Coordination will then be the central issue. The open system approach adopts a totally opposite approach in that organizations are conceptual, as informal and open to environmental influences. The human relations school was perhaps the first to follow the open system model. The cooperative organization also reflects the views of open system theorists. Communication is central to the cooperative organization. The advocates of this view argue that many variables impact on the organization, such as human emotions, intergroup relations, which cannot always be anticipated in advance. Though the two approaches are based on different sets of assumptions, we can argue that a synthesis of the two approaches is possible at the theoretical level. An organization can have components that follow the closed systems approach, and some other components might reflect the open systems approach. In fact, the open systems theorists assume that the formal and informal organizations are closely interrelated, one leads to the other. Views of David Easton and Chester Bernard. A modern organization witnessed vast growth in size, complexity, and scale of activity. Its growing complexity and scale of operation demand that a successful administration must integrate them within a framework. In an age of specialization, integration becomes more and more important in an organization. Organizations are at transcending national boundaries. They are engaging in product diversification to explain such a growing phenomenon. System approach and of organization become important. The modern organizational approach is called system approach. The structural or functional functionalist of Talcott Pearson, the political system theory of David Easton, and the functional theory of Robert Merton. Gabriel Elman and others influenced this approach. The system approach marks a departure from the earlier approaches of organization. In present, an attempt is made to know the views of David Easton and Chester Bernard on analysis of the political and administrative systems, respectively. A modern organization witnessed vast growth in size, complexity, and scale of operations. To analyze the modern organization's system approach is more appropriate and relevant. Systems approach marks a departure from the earlier approaches of organization. It places emphasis on studying organization as an open system. Systems approach to organizations provide a useful framework for understanding how the element of an organization interact among themselves and with their environment. In today's dynamic environment, systems approach is more relevant for organizational analysis. David Easton and Chester Bernard has adopted systems uh, approach to analyze political and administrative systems respectively. David Easton adopted this approach to analyze public policy marking in a political system, whereas Chester Bernard adopted it to analyze process of administration in an organization. The contributions of these theories are presented in this unit. Next is concept of learning organizations. Today's organizational environment is different from that of the past. Global competition, information technology, the quality service revolution, and diversity and ethics are forcing management of all types of organizations to rethink their approach to operations and human resource. As a result of this paradigm shift, new organizations are emerging that are more responsive to both their internal and external environments. The state of the art information technology, total quality management practices, and organizational learning characterize These emerging organizations, this unit examines the concept of learning organization. We live in a time of rapid change in a competitive world in which organizations need to shift their functions constantly without warning, with no apparent reasons, liberalization, loosening of trade barriers, etc., increase in product diversity and volume of transactions, a global competition, revolution in information technology, material sciences, genetic engineering, rise of consumerism, changes in sex roles, etc., are the major reasons resulting in shifts towards a market-based economy. Many of the traditional tested managerial and organizational solutions are increasingly becoming obsolete. It is imperative that organizations need to marshal their resources with lightning speed to respond to changing conditions, utilize and maximize the combined skills and wisdom of all the people on a sustainable path to success. This complex, unpredictable, and interconnected environment of organizations, the need of for the continuous revamping, have resulted in a growing popularity of the term the learning organizations. Garrett 1987, Senge 1990. The major feature underlying this concept is a vision of an organization which is capable of self-reflection, of creating and utilizing new knowledge. Prahlad and Hamil 1990 emphasize the need for a focus on developing the core competencies which constitute the collective learning of the organization. This makes it imperative for organization to promote the development of new organization culture and devise strategies for constant learning. In this unit, we will try to discuss what organization's culture is, functions of organizational culture, types of organizational culture, and creating new organizational culture. The current environment of public organizations demand change in the organizational culture with emphasis on constant learning. An attempt has been made in this unit to describe the concept of and characteristics of new organization culture and suggestions for interventions for developing the same. Organization culture is an integrative mechanism which an implicit organizational control system prescribing and prohibiting certain behaviors. The organization culture is manifested as different conscious and unconscious levels and gets transmitted to new employees. Common expressions are physical artifacts, cultural artifacts, language, jargon, and metaphors, stories, myths, and legends, ceremonies and celebrations, routines, rites, and rituals, behavioral norms, and shared beliefs and values. The new organization's culture is characterized as aligned and focused organization with the involvement of formal and informal leaders in the change process. Developing new work culture requires planning, conscious, and sustained continuous efforts of all people in organizations. Many highly successful organizations throughout the world have integrated these characteristics and are working towards the rest. The new public administration. The discipline and practice of the public administration since 1987 has undergone several changes. The politics administration dichotomy, propounded initially by Woodrow Wilson, slowly gave way to a gradual recognition of the science of management. F.W. Taylor's scientific management movement and Elton Mayo's Hawthorne experiments in the 1920s and has subjected the structures and processes of a public organizations to a critical analysis. Efficiency had become the key concern in public administration. Gradually, during the post-war period, concepts such as informal organizations, work group, teamwork, leadership, cooperation, etc., gained prominence. The need to gauge the influence of these concepts in organization, thereby giving importance to the human element in the organization, was emphasized, especially by the protagonists of the human relations school. Herbert Simon's administrative behavior in 1940s brought to the fore the significance of logistic positivism in the arena of policy making and need establish a link between the means and ends. The scope of the discipline of public administration got widened with efforts made to relate it to the other disciplines such as economics, political science, technology, and sociology. Change was visible with the abandonment of politics administration dichotomy and re-establishing a link between the two in the context of public policy making. Policy making was considered the essence of public administration. The discipline and practice of the public administration, which had all along emphasized principles and work procedures, gradually underwent this transformation. The influence of the new public administration movement has been a turning point in this change process. In this unit, an attempt will be made to trace the genesis of new public administration, highlight the thrust areas of the Minobrook first and Minobrook second conferences to enable us to appreciate the changes in the discipline and practice of public administration. The broad areas of distinctions and the dominant themes from between the two conferences will be focused upon. New public administration that evolved in 1960s in the aftermath of the first Minobro conference gave primacy to key concerns that had relevance during those times. They included social equity, policy issues, change, participatory citizenry, etc. The development that occurred in the 20th year since Minobro first in the form of a regulatory state, less government, more governance, privatization reflected public cynicism towards government in tune with the changes in economy, technology, and employment. The second Minobro conference, against this background, attempted to examine the future of public administration. The conference made a sincere attempt to highlight some of the themes such as ethics, human relations, social equity, concern for the state of the field, along with the current themes such as technology, policy, economic, and legal perspectives, etc. Public administration, the deliberation noted, should draw from variation disciplines that intersect the field and construct a new, more relevant discipline that integrates several selected areas. It was felt that there is need for theory of public administration with an overarching epistemology and research methodology. Perspective of public choice. In the previous unit, we have been exposed to various approaches to the study of bureaucracy. In this unit, we will discuss a fresh approach to political economy and public administration, an approach that has a radically different view about people, their motivations, and actions in the arena of politics and administration. This approach is a public choice, and the present unit deals with how this approach studies bureaucracy and administration. For a long time, those who studied bureaucracy assumed that the while bureaucracies display the behavior of any formal organization, what characterized these and set these apart from other formal organizations like business firms was that bureaucrats functioned keeping the public interest in mind. The personnel and staff of a public administration agencies were motivated to work for implementing as efficiently as possible the overall policies and strategies of the government. In actual practice, bureaus and development administration agencies often display behavior that has prompted many to ask: is their behavior consistent with actions and the tactics which will efficiently and effectively implement government policies? Are there delays, efficiencies, and suboptimal behavior? Are some of the official venal? Are the policies which are being implemented the best policies to begin with? The question is, if such behavior is sometimes seen, why are these sort of behavior displays? Is it a problem of motivation of incorrectly devised insensitive system? Why is there often a deviation from the official policy line? These are serious questions that any student of public administration is confronted with. Public choice theory sought to provide a different way of approaching the study of administration. Basically, the theory suggested that when we study any organization or institution, we should look at the behavior of the people, that is, the individuals constituting the organization or institutions. The underlying assumption is that there is a representative individual who typifies the behavior of people in that organization or institution. This is not to suggest that all the individuals are identical or behave in the same manner. It merely suggests that to make the analysis or study easier, we may think of a typical individual. Just to study bureaucracy, you may think how would a typical bureaucrat behave in a given situation. We should not go away with the idea that the public choice approach deals with the pathological cases or situations that are deviations from the ideal one. What it aims to do it is give a general framework and overall mode of analysis of political administrative process and institutions. This is what we propose to study in this unit, with participatory with particular emphasis on the functioning of bureaucrats and administration. The following section expounds and clarifies the methodological basis of the public choice made mode of analysis. The section discusses the notion of rationality. As the basic premise of the public choice approach is that political actors are inherently rational. The public choice approach is anchored in the framework of methodological individual. This section also expounds on the definitional characteristics of public choice as also some related approaches as politics as exchange. This means that the political and administrative process are seen as an as exchange process. This section 19.3 that will discuss the public choice approach to some basic political process actions and institutions such as collective choice and voting and interests and pressure groups. This section also discusses the origins and nature of the state, having set the ball rolling in the following two sections in the unit, taking takes up in the right earnest the discussion of administration and bureaucracy using public choice, the structure and nature of bureaucrats, and tries to explain why they are so, as well as explains the provision of public goods. It discusses from within the public choice tradition some of the principal theories of bureaucracy. Section 19.5 analyzes the choice of regulating the economic activities of the private sector by government regulatory authorities, as well as that is what is called rent seeking. In this unit, you will have acquainted with a particular approach to bureaucracy and public administration, one that has been highly influential, the public choice approach. We saw that the public choice unit takes one a particular aspect of human behavior, even in the arena of public administration and politics, namely the display of pertinence and the making of choices. The main contention of public choice theorists is that first, it is wrong to think that when we talk about decision making in the private sector, we know that the people are governed by their self interest, while decision making in the public sector or a government or public advertisement administrative agencies is somehow governed by the public interest or social interest. Even in these areas, the people working making the decisions are the same, and hence they will be governed by the some same motivations, whether they make decisions in the private sector or in the government. Hence the tools that neoclassical economics employs to study decision makings in markets can fruitfully be used to study decision making in the political domain. In the course of the unit, we begin by looking at the concept of rationality. Since public choice theory assumes that decision makers are rational, the unit also studies the idea of methodological individualism, that is the cornerstone of the public choice philosophy. The unit further discussed the idea of politics as exchange and how public choice uses economics to discuss politics. In terms of applications, the unit discussed two basic themes in a political theory and how public choice analyzes these. These were the nature of the state and its origin, and theories and ideas in voting. Finally, the unit moved to the center stage of its discussion, that of the application of public choice to the bureaucracy. The unit explained Niskanen's theory of bureaucrats and discussed some extensions and elaborated on the theme of public goods and how they are provided. Further, how public choice analyzes these actions of bureaucracies. In the subsequent section, the unit discussed the public choice approach to rent seeking, the theory of regulation. Next is what is this? Pertinence of critical theory. See, public administration is a field of knowledge with uncertain boundaries. Public administration scholars are hesitant to call it a discipline due to the lack of indigenous theories to the field. They borrowed many of their conceptual frameworks from the areas of business administration, theories of management, leadership, employee motivation, and so on. From political science and economics, in such a field, critical theory offers a critique on the functioning of public institutions and provide a vision of better future. But critical theory appears infrequently in the literatures of public administration. In simple, critical theory offers critique of public administration and possibilities for a better future. In this unit, an attempt is made to discuss critical theory in the context of public administration. Critical theory is grounded during the period of Renaissance in 18th century in Europe and America that used science, reason, and individual self-determination to cast off religious and governmental authority. Critical theory is associated with the Frankfurt School beginning in the 1920s. It recognizes the concrete temporal and cultural specificity of the individual. The development of critical theory as a philosophical and practical discipline has greatly influenced social sciences in general public administration. In particular, it is post Weberian conceptualization, it offers critique of public institutions and provide a vision for a better future. This theory has a strong individualistic, subjectivist, and audit bureaucratist thrust. In the present era of globalization world, critical approach is very much needed to analyze the issues that are influencing governance. Critical theory needed now more than ever. New public management perspective. See, globalization, which is multifaceted, is having a tremendous impact on various facets of life in the 21st century. It has also influence on various disciplines. While an economists look at globalization and as a removal of trade barriers, promotion of foreign direct investment, entry of multinational enterprises, sociologists examines it from political, cultural, and social perspective. The onset of globalization is leading to significant changes in the role of individuals and institutions across the world. Markets have come to occupy a key place. The nature of state is also undergoing some transformation. We have already discussed this aspect in detail in course on state, society, and public administration of this program. Globalization has ushered in other changes such as interdependencies among the states, reduction of trade barriers, increasing use of information technology, communication revolution, blurring of boundaries, and realignment of public and private sectors. These developments have a profound influence on public administration. The transformation of economies in the past few years from command to market oriented all over the world has raised various concerns about the failure of the traditional rate model to implement appropriate policies and deliver effective services. The need for developing an alternative model of administration was being felt during 1980s debates and discussions centered around making a deliberate conscious choice between the old public administration, which relied on bureaucratic efficiency, and the present day new perspective of public administration with a significant management orientation, which is labeled new public management. This perspective led to introduction of a series of managerial concepts and techniques in the governmental systems with a view to make public organizations efficient, economical, and effective. NPM attempts to prescribe ways for renewed governmental functioning in the globalization scenario. An attempt is made in this unit to trace the emergence of new public administration perspective and highlight its salient features. The reforms initiated in several countries and highlighted, and an appraisal of the this perspective is done. New public management (NPM) has emerged as a management tool for achieving development goals. Despite its focus on rollback of state, there persists a growing concern about government's crucial role in creating a sound environment for its citizens. Public administration, no doubt, is slow-moving, cautious as compared to management, but the publicness aspect in it should not be sidelined. Managerial orientation is applicable to the public domain has to support government and citizens. What is needed is public service orientation, decentralization, and networking of public agencies. No doubt, there is a clear evidence of greater exchanges between public and private sectors and a service to bring reforms in the structure, functions, and work culture of government organizations. In the Commonwealth Association for Public Administration and Management (CAPAM) conference held in Canada in 1994, the need for strengthening the civil society, especially in the developing countries, was emphasized. Empowering the citizens also assumes crucial significance. The focus it was treated as it as a is at the grassroots where people are striving hard to create democratic space for themselves. Any reform under the influence of NPM need to be introduced in any country, keeping in view its political and socio-economic setup. The advocates of NPM focused on benefits of managerial autonomy, exposed on the overprotected bureaucracy to managerial models, which, if carefully adopted, can bring about improvement in traditional public administration. Public administration in the present times is becoming complex, and in this scenario, it is moving towards enlightening public government governance. It is the coexistence of government, market, and civil society organizations working towards enhancing opportunities for the well-being of its citizens. As Den Hart suggests, NPM needs to evolve along the lines of new public services NPS, which propagates public interest, acting democratically and ensuring the accountability of public servants not only to market but also to community values, citizens' interest, valuing people's citizenship, public services above entrepreneurship. This calls for different kinds of collaborative partnerships, networking, thereby striving towards combining economic management with social values. A balance needs to be maintained between managerial reforms and governance challenges. Next is state administrative theory in 21st century. State In the world, remarkable changes took place in the 1980s and 90s. The government in the West sought to adopt themselves to new technology, new societal demands, and keen competition. This led to an emergence of a new kind of public administration based on managerialism orientation. There is a criticism of control oriented, people avoiding a rule bound Weberian bureaucratic model, and emphasized construction of a model focused on results and cost effectiveness in public government governance. In this scenario, many of the flexible organizational designs and practices pioneered by the private sector have introduced in public administration with suitable modifications. It is noted that rigid bureaucratic system was inefficient and ineffective in delivering of effective public services. David Walker stated that the government is on a burning platform and the statistic way of doing business is unacceptable. The perception that the old ways are no longer up to the new tasks has prompted new actors using instruments of civic action to emerge to meet citizens' need. New right thinkers and public choice theorists have criticized the preeminence of the state and government in delivering of public services. They advocated in favor of greater role for the market and lesser role for the state and government. To make public administration receptive to global pressures, the reforms like debureaucratization, downsizing, deinvestments, marketization, liberalization, privatization have brought discernible changes in the philosophical concepts of public administration. A series of reforms that have initiated are directed towards bring about a change in the public systems and institutions. In this context, the state of the administrative theory in 21st century should look into. We have analyzed the development and growth of administrative theories in unit 3. In this unit, an attempt is made to know the state of administrative theory in rapidly changing environment. Today's administrative environment is characterized by rapid change, globalization, marketization, and privatization process have totally altered the boundaries of public administration. It was widely acknowledged that globalization has changed the nature and scope of public administration worldwide. This led to the emergence of a new kind of public administration based on managerial orientation. Management of public services is a developing theme in the discipline of public administration. Under the changed circumstances, the traditional model of public administration based on Weberian bureaucracy is no longer viable to provide efficient public services. The blurring of the boundaries between government, private, and non-profit sectors have given public service a broader meaning. Low cost coupled with output and quality is now yardsticks in the delivery of public services. The performance of a public administration is now measured in terms of efficient public service delivery. The rapidly changing external and internal environment has affecting public service delivery. Administrative theory of 21st century should address this issue by developing conceptual models for effective and efficient service delivery. Contemporary public administration needs a theory that can easily relate its underlying philosophical and social ideas to the ground reality. Administrative theory in future must attune itself to the changing face of information technology, ecology, environment, administrative capacity, gender sensitivity, participatory development. Administrative theory has to transform, innovate, and adapt to these changing trends. Administrative theory should address the problems of practitioners. There should be better connection between theory and practice.